If you're into video games, you are at the right place. Who am I, you ask? I am the Wiz! Hello, everybody. Welcome back. If you're on YouTube, you're seeing gameplay footage of the Diofield Chronicles. I'll be doing a thinning of the backlog on that Thursday, so check that out. And tell me what you think of the video when you see it. And tell me what you think of this video and of this episode when you hear it as well. While we get started with what happened in the past 2 days, if you are watching this right now and something happens after the time of about 4 o'clock, I record this at 4 p.m., so that's probably why I haven't caught up with that as well. So let's get into some of the news. First off, Microsoft signs deal with Outriders developer People Can Fly for Xbox game. It's called Project Maverick and will have about a $30 to $50 million budget. This is a smart move on Xbox and on Microsoft to start having smaller titles for their portfolio, especially since we keep hearing that a lot of these budgets are bloating and are taking 4, 5, 6 years to make. This is a smart move on there to bolster their portfolio of games, so this is a good idea. I played a good amount of Outriders a couple of years ago. It was fun. It needed more work, but I definitely enjoyed the gameplay that I had with it. I didn't beat it, though. I've heard the end game stuff they added in the end was actually pretty good, but I couldn't have been bothered, to be completely honest. But I had fun with that game. So if you haven't checked out Outriders, I think it's like $20 now if you really want to try it out. I would. It's actually pretty good. Embracer Group plans to cancel some projects and close studios. This is after that big deal fell through that was worth billions of dollars that the CEO was told about last week. Yeah, I guess they were hoping this thing was going to go through. It was going to fund a bunch of different projects that they were having set up. And that's not great. I mean, Embracer for the past couple of years has been on a buying spree. They recently bought the Lord of the Rings property. They've bought studios like Volition, Eidos Montreal, things like that. So, unfortunately, this might be the case. We're going to have to close some studios down and shut down some projects, and that stinks. And that really is a testament to how I think not well run the business side was run. I don't know how you can put yourself into a situation where you purchase all these assets but have nothing in the pipeline and that you're hoping that the next sale will fund everything else. That's the sign of a poorly run business. And I know some people are going to think, well, Wiz, there are businesses that are run like that thrive. Look at Nike, for example. Sure, but they also fall prey to these types of issues where the moment one gear goes wrong, the whole thing tumbles. So hopefully there's not that many people who lose their jobs, and that the studios that they're closing will be able to divert those assets and those people to other studios inside Embracer Group. Unfortunately, I think some are going to be let go. I will say this: those who are worried that, like Eidos Montreal or the former Square Enix studios that were bought recently, they think they're closing down. I don't think they're closing down. I would look at more support studios like Volition that will probably be cut at that point, or smaller studios like that. So that's where I think they're going to start putting their attention. It still sucks. I don't like that either, but that looks like where it's going to head. Let's move on to the next story. Embracer Group wants to turn The Lord of the Rings into one of the biggest gaming franchises ever. Oh boy. Okay, so not a bad idea. The problem now is that Lord of the Rings hit its zenith in the 2000s with the movies. You would need to have other types of properties that will utilize the Lord of the Rings to make it more popular in a mainstream way, and Rings of Power didn't do it on Amazon. Rings of Power actually did not do very well. So to make this into one of the biggest gaming franchises ever, you probably have to emulate the movies. And I might be wrong on this, but if you were to do that, you would have to get the permission of New Line Cinema in order to actually use the assets and use the likenesses of the actors and the characters from those movies. I think that's how the deal went, because they don't have rights to the movies. They have rights to the literary works and everything else. In that matter, this could be a more complex situation. But of course, if you have one great game, you're set. That might be the thing that they're hoping for here. So we'll see what happens with that. I don't think Lord of the Rings is a property that can be milked that way. Look at Gollum, for example. Well, Gollum's not fair because that just turned out to be really shitty. The Lord of the Rings can only be made into certain types of games. We're looking at RTSs, third-person action games, stuff like that. So I don't know how mainstream it will get to be one of the biggest franchises ever, but they can sure try. We'll see how that turns out. I don't think it's going to be a complete failure, but I don't think being one of the biggest gaming franchises out there, I don't think that's going to happen. Moving on to the next story, Overwatch 2 missions will cost $15 to access. I know some people are upset by this. I don't remember them saying that these were going to be free with the free-to-play game. I know you would assume that, and I understand that, but you would have to listen to the way they word things in these press releases when they announce they're going to have the single-player content and everything. This is not a big surprise to me. It could also be the thing that shows people that maybe Overwatch 2 isn't really doing that great when it comes to sales. I played it for about a month, and I was aghast by the prices they had for skins and for costumes and characters. I was like, God, that's not worth it at all. And how grindy the past was terrible. So I fell right off on that. I think I'm not the only one either. I don't like that either. I think that's a bad move on their part, but, you know, they're going to do whatever on that point. So we'll see how that turns out for them. Next story, FTC requested injunction to block Activision Blizzard deal. That was on Monday, late Monday. And then today, a U.S. judge approved of the temporary block. Basically, what happened is the FTC wants to prevent the sale from happening until the judge actually orders what the ruling is on this one. Microsoft's completely okay with it. They've said press releases that this will actually help make the process go faster. So they are fine with it. What do I think is going to happen on this? I don't know. I thought this was going to go through. I'm not entirely sure right now. I mean, the EU is okay with it. There's about 40 other countries that is okay with the sale. We, of course, know that the CMA is blocking it and that Microsoft is looking to appeal that. And there's also talk that if the appeal doesn't go through, that Microsoft is going to say, you know what? We just won't sell Activision games there anymore. I don't see that happening in the U.S. If the FTC wins this and the judge orders this can't go through, I think Microsoft pretty much jettisons the entire deal. They'll pay the fine to, or they pay the breakage fee to Activision, and they'll move on. I don't know where this is going to go. It's going to be interesting to find out. I think the CMA's decision is in August, and I think this will be probably around by the end of the year. So we'll find out more when that happens. Next story. Xbox Game Studios chief says people need to realize games now take 4 to 6 years to make. Here's the thing that I think these game studios need to start realizing. You need to do something about that. I get it if it's a big technical showcase and it's going to have these incredible graphics and it's going to be in a genre that is pretty much well-liked across the board and has a long shelf life. That I understand. Fine. That takes 4 to 6 years. I get it. Like Zelda can be take 4 to 6 years to make. Fine, I get that. I don't think every game needs to take 4 to 6 years to make. And I think we are at a point now that gamers are fine with games not looking like the bleeding edge of graphical power. I might be wrong. Some of you might hear that and go, "You're fucking nuts." That's not true. My opinion specifically, I think gamers are fine when a game does not look absolutely amazing technically or graphically. Asking for like the bleeding edge and having these gorgeous details, I mean, not every game needs that. It is fine to spend 2 or 3 years in a game looks mid-quality. Like I would say, and the graphics from a 1 to a 10 look like a 6. If the gameplay works, there's enough word of mouth now that those games will actually work and make sales. To have every game now take 4 to 6 years to make, not only is that not going to help these studios and Xbox or any of these console makers, it's not going to help the makers of those games. Because what happens a lot of the time with these games that take a long time, even if it takes like 2 or 3 years, okay? Someone's going to make a game and they're going to be like, oh yeah, this is the rage, people are going to love this. And by a year, everyone's sick of that game, of that type of game. And now you're telling me it's going to take 3 to 4 or 5 to 6 years to make? That's not a good position to be in. You guys, something has to change on that one because I don't care. Oh, but the technology is growing. Like, then use older technology. Unreal Engine 5 makes it that much more difficult to make games. Use Unreal Engine 4. Let the more expensive studios, the big studios that have like 500, 600, use UE5. And then let them figure out the technical issues and everything. And then when that becomes more manageable, then use UE5 on the mid-size or the smaller scale studios, and then they'll go to UE6. I don't understand why everyone's trying to be bleeding edge on this. It's not necessary. It really is not necessary. Like some of the biggest games that happen in the... okay, Zelda, for example. I doubt that is that technically impressive. Maybe on the code side to make things work, fine. But graphically, no. The success of the Switch has pretty much said graphics really do not matter in the case. You just have to be innovative, and you have to come up with different ideas. I don't really understand the constant need to be bleeding edge. And it's going to lead this industry having a focal point where, yeah, this game looks great, but it plays like it was from 5 years ago. And gamers don't like that. They're not going to spend $70 on a game that plays like it was 5 years ago. It's just not going to happen. They have to shore up the processes somewhere. They have to do something with this because this is becoming a little ridiculous at this point. He might be right. He probably is right that it's going to take 4 to 6 years to make games on their end, but it shouldn't. And it's only going to hurt them in the end when it takes them 4 to 5 years to make a single game and people don't like it because it plays like something from 6 or 7 years ago. It's a terrible move. They need to shore up their processes somewhere. Just a terrible idea. I think the gaming industry is just too scared to actually move forward with better business practices and better ways to develop. I mean, look at movies. Some movies that used to take 4, 5, 6 years to make now take a year or two. And yes, like some things go on the wayside, but they fashion up those processes a lot better, and it's easier to make. So I don't understand the need to do this and have these budgets balloon to an exorbitant amount where they now have to put in microtransactions and battle passes when it wasn't really necessary in the first place. So this is just an industry that needs to be shaken up big time when it comes to the way they make games. That's my thought on that. Next story, Soul Calibur 5 is being delisted from digital marketplaces. This is the one from the Xbox 360 and PS3, I think. I believe Ezio was the guest character. I didn't like Soul Calibur 5 too much. I played it for a little bit, and I was like, not my thing. I didn't like 4 either. Man, now I'm thinking about it. 4 is 6, and I thought 6 was good. I think 2 is the last one I really liked. So if you don't have the physical disc, it's going to be a collector's item, I guess, so go purchase it as soon as you can. Other than that, it's being delisted, I believe, next week on the 19th, I think is where I read it. So if you really want it, go grab it. Otherwise, it's gone. And for today's top story, I'm going to showcase the highlights from the Capcom Showcase. First things that were announced was Mega Man X Dive Offline. That's coming to Steam, iOS, and Android. Man, is this the only way we're going to get Mega Man or Mega Man X in this? Just the old games being repackaged to us and then this? I'll try it when it's on Steam, but I'm not thrilled. But anyway. A new trailer for Exo Primal was shown off. It looks good. I will probably check it out when it's on Game Pass. So I am interested in seeing how that turns out. Pragmata was delayed until 2024. I don't even know what this is still. Maybe there's more on it and I have to read up on it, but I don't even know what it is at this point. So move on from there. Ghost Trick demo is available now. That's coming in June 30th. I have not been able to play this, but I wanted to. They made so few copies of this game on the DS that it was hard to get. So when this comes out, I hope it's $20. It can't be like 40. I hope it's 20. But if it's a good price, I will definitely check it out. Apollo Justice Ace Attorney trilogy was shown off and is releasing this year. You know, I want to get into the Ace Attorney games, but I just never been able to. Something about the way that the actual court system works in that game is a little weird. Maybe one day I'll get into it. And then some gameplay snippets of Dragon's Dogma 2 was shown off. It looks good. I definitely have to try and get back into Dragon's Dogma 1. So I think at some point in our thinning the backlog segment, I'm going to give that a serious shake. So we'll see how that turns out. Well, that is it for this episode of I Am the Wiz Gaming. Thursday, we're going to have Thinning the Backlog with Dialfield Chronicles, and I'll go over what that is on that day. Friday, we'll have another gaming news roundup. And then Saturday, me and Kim are going to review the movie Spirited Away. Spoiler alert, it's one of my favorite movies of all time, so you probably already know what my thoughts on there is, so I'm really looking forward to hearing what Kim has to say about that, especially since I've pretty much demolished her favorite movie on Tuesday. Sorry, Kim. Well, anyway, that is it for this episode of I Am the Wiz. Guess who I am? I am the Wiz. Talk to you next time. Bye.